So the 2023 NBA Draft took place last Thursday, and while it's way too early to be handing out winners and losers just yet, because honestly, we haven't even seen a lot of these players even play yet, and yet it is possible to make some judgments from some of the activity that we saw in Brooklyn last week, and some of the pre-draft things, and then some of the players picked. So here are our winners and losers for the 2023 NBA Draft. So let's kick things off with a winner. And that has to be the San Antonio Spurs, right? I mean, they had the top pick in the draft, and they used it on French superstar Victor Wembanyama, who is widely considered to be a can't-miss player. ESPN NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski calls Wemby the most anticipated player in NBA history. Well, this kid has handles. He can shoot it from outside. He can rebound. He can defend the rim. Oh, and by the way, he's also 7'2", and they think he might still grow a few inches. Is Wojo drunk, saying that Wemby is the most anticipated player ever? Of course he is. That is one of the dumbest statements that I've heard recently from NBA pundits. But there is no question this kid has some serious potential. I've watched some clips of him. He can play a little bit. Am I completely sold on Wemby? No, for a few reasons. One, he's rail thin. And big bodies tend to have joint problems. I'm not sure that his body is going to be capable of holding up to the demands of an NBA schedule and the physicality of the NBA. But the Spurs got the top guy, and after watching their past few seasons in San Antonio, no, they needed it because they have been absolutely horrible the last few years. So, hey, Spurs are a winner for sure. Okay, but I'm going to hand out a loser. And before I even say it, some people are not going to like it one bit, but it has to be said, doesn't it? Look, the current group of athletes that we have, they've been speaking into microphones since they were like 13, 14 years old. Most of them are pretty polished in the interview process. They can give you the necessary answers. They can talk a little bit while not really saying anything that important. They've learned how to play that game. However, last week on the draft, the broadcast brought the parents and siblings of these players, and they had them join them on the mic and share their thoughts with the television audience. So we got like a reporter saying something like, okay, your son finally made it to the NBA. How proud of him are you? Over and over and over again. Well, most of these parents haven't grown up with a microphone in their face. They're not used to doing these interviews. And while some of them didn't embarrass themselves, a few of them had some rough moments. So you had some interviews that sounded like this. Hey, your son finally made it to the NBA, Mrs. Whatever. How proud of him are you? We're really proud of him, and we love him so much, and we just hope he does good. Yeah, ESPN, I could have done without the family interviews. That was brutal to watch. It was uncomfortable. It made me cringe often. We don't need the families interviewed. Interview the player. Interview the coaches. Interview the front office people. Don't interview the families. That's not needed. I'm going to give a winner to a team that got an absolute steal in the first round of the draft, and that is, of course, the Houston Rockets. A number of teams passed on Villanova power forward Cam Whitmore. They say there might have been some injury concerns, and he slid down the draft board. Uncomfortable, but I watched Cam play last year at Villanova, and that pick at number 20 for Houston, that's an absolute steal. Whitmore attacks the rim. He's a big, strong rebounder. He can defend a little bit. He plays extremely hard. He has a pretty good motor. I don't know how he's going to be in the NBA, but I'm looking at him and going, with a chip on his shoulder, he's going to be even more dangerous. Now, the Rockets have been terrible for years now. But think about this. They are slowly putting together a young, exciting team. You've got Jalen Green. You've got Jabari Smith. You've got Kenyon Martin Jr. They drafted Amen Thompson last week too. And now you have Cam Whitmore. Hey, this group could really be growing into a fun team to watch over the next few years. Houston was an absolute winner in this draft. Okay, but on to another loser. And I have to take a shot at the worldwide leader in sports. And I know I shouldn't do it, but I have to. The NBA draft coverage, it was not great. One, the panel was bad. You had former NBA players J.J. Redick and Jay Bilas, both reasonably smart NBA guys. Okay, cool. But then they were joined by Malika Andrews and Andrea Carter on the panel. I'm not sure why. Both of them were pretty painful to listen to. Look, I don't care. If you want to have females on the panel, great. But they have to at least, I don't know, maybe know things, maybe know the game, know basketball at all. And that was pretty rough to watch. Andrews angered a number of people when she mentioned Charlotte draft pick Brandon Miller's involvement in that murder. Remember when he, took the murder weapon to the murderer and then he didn't get any charges? She brought that up during the broadcast. Not that I was against it, but I don't know if you want to say that. And then at one point, Carter called Redick, the guy sitting next to her, a top 20 shooter all time in the NBA. One of the best three-point shooters ever. She called him an average shooter. I don't know why. I don't know why she took a shot at JJ. I have no idea. They brought no insight. They had nothing to say. When they went to them to get insight, they'd say, hey, what do you think they need here? Well, I think they really need a shooter. Any other thoughts? Did you have anything whatsoever coming out of your brain other than that? They brought nothing to the table. Someone, please convince me that having two females on that panel, those two in particular, was anything other than political. Because that's what it felt like. ESPN likes to get in bed with these politics, and I don't care if you're on the panel, but you got to bring something to the table. These two brought nothing to the table. But it wasn't just that. They were tough to listen to, don't get me wrong. But since NBA trades aren't fully completed, it was also a really confusing draft to watch. Because you had teams that had traded their picks, but it isn't technically official yet. So, for instance, last Thursday morning, the Denver Nuggets traded next year's first rounder and this year's second rounder to Indiana. They picked up the 29th and the 32nd pick. Okay, the trade's not technically final, but we know when the pick is made, it's Denver making the pick. But instead, ESPN says, well, the Pacers are taking this pick. Indiana takes so-and-so. And you're like, I thought that was Denver's pick. And then, well, that's going to go to Denver eventually, but it's Indiana's pick. No, I understand, but it makes it confusing. It makes it hard to watch. When the draft board says the wrong team, why am I watching? It's just not very good. The NBA, honestly, they need to watch the NFL and take some notes. Take some notes on that draft process. Get better people on your panel, people that actually know the players, that actually know the teams, that actually know the reason why you might be drafted, and then make it more easy to understand. Half the time, I didn't know what was going on. The ESPN broadcast of the NBA draft, it was not good at all. Okay, YouTube, make sure you go over and check out the rest of the podcast. We've got a number of other winners and losers to hand out in this NBA draft. Plus, we do have a little bit of news. And if you're stuck right now, maybe you're sitting there and you're saying, man, there's not much to watch until football season goes. Never worry. We've got a couple of things for you to watch. Plus, we do have a Daly Dose top 5 for you as well. A lot of talk this year about Wemby being the most anticipated player ever in the history of the NBA. We've got a few other players that might have been just a little bit more anticipated than he was. So make sure you go over and check out the full podcast. I will leave a link here in the comments on YouTube for you. Hope you all are doing well. I will see you next Wednesday. Have a great week.